In life, there are usually two types of things that keep us from reaching our goals. Functionally, they are the same thing, and in colloquial speech, when we refer to these things, we kind of get the same idea of what's going on. But for the purposes of this video, we're just going to separate them, and you'll see why eventually. Firstly, you have barriers. Entities, things that exist that prevent you from getting from point A to point B. In my mind, these are usually purely physical things. The second type of hindrance, which alludes to the point of this video, is something that is called a gap. The best way to put it, in my opinion, is something that is missing that is preventing you from getting from point A to point B. Texting a girl, and obviously it's not going anywhere because you're texting the dry cell. And she's sending you back, oh, how about you, and you're just happy to get responses. You feel like you're top G because she's sending you back her messages and you feel good and stuff. So you call a reality gap. You are delusional. You get rocked out in your favorite video game by somebody who probably looks like this, or God forbid, by someone who looks like this in games like these. You have a skill gap, but you possibly also have a life. Sometimes you know, or at least think you know what you need to do, but the way of going about doing that is vague at best. As I'm sure you've realized by now, there are many types of gaps, both physical and metaphorical. But of all the gaps there, in my opinion, the one that is the most tilting, the one that holds back the most intelligent and capable people that really should do better, is what is known as a confidence gap. I should mention that I am not the person who has coined this term. I got it from reading this book, The Confidence Gap, A Guide to Overcoming Fear and Self-Doubt by Russ Harris. I read it a few months ago and it really helped me. I would recommend it to you if you're interested. Probably one of the better self-help books out there in my opinion. But you ain't gonna read shit, so just watch my video instead. That's not to say this is a summary or a full-on summary of that book, or even a review even. I just wanted to give credit where credit's due. And also give some context to the message as well. I can confidently say that I have become more confident after reading The Confidence Gap. There's this term, ACT, Acceptance Commitment Training, that is literally drilled into you as you read into the book. In completely bro science layman's terms, you can basically say it's don't be a pussy. In seriousness, it's about establishing a layer of accountability with yourself and doing what needs to be done even though you don't really feel like doing it because purely out of the fact that you know it's what you need to do, regardless of how scared you are or how much you feel like you're possibly going to fail. Because you can only truly become confident in something if you are good at it. You can only become good through practice. Practice requires action. If you only act when you're confident, then you never have action and you never get good. Therefore, the number one rule of this book is basically actions come first, confidence comes second. Don't worry, it's not that simple. The book teaches you plenty of skills, habits, and tricks that you can use to get to a stage. There, doing actions despite your feelings is the norm and it becomes a part of your routine. And everything is backed up from science, from a scientific perspective, from philosophy, from statistics to even testimonial. Confidence gap is such an annoying thing because it doesn't really have to be there. No one can blame you if you don't know something. You can always figure it out. You could always practice really hard at something and close that skill gap. You could get a dose of reality, a reality check, and then close that reality gap. So to close the confidence gap, you need confidence. Just be confident. Confidence comes from within, man. You just gotta do it. You just gotta bring energy and shit, man. You know what I mean? You are a narcissist. You can't exactly choose when you feel confident in something. You can behave in a way that exuberates confidence, make people think that you're confident, which is not a bad thing to do in my opinion. But the truth is, whether or not people can sense or call out your inner bluff or not doesn't really change how you feel deep inside, and it doesn't really get rid of that sense of discomfort. When we want to do something, oftentimes the only thing that is hindering us is our own minds. For example, at the end of November, I said I wanted to be consistent with my videos in December. I wanted to upload one video a week in December, no matter what. I didn't meet this target because after a while, I felt as if I was running out of ideas. I just didn't know what to write or say or something of value. The truth is, I didn't run out of inspiration or ideas. I just simply wasn't convinced that the ideas I was coming up with were good enough to talk about. The overall voice and tone and strategy of my channel was sort of in the balance. I had started scripts, but I had quit midway because I thought it was too edgy or because I felt as if I was losing the point and I didn't really know what I wanted to say. There were times where I sat down at my table ready to write, but just sat there for 30 minutes or an hour because I without doing any work because I just didn't know what I wanted to say and I couldn't come up with any ideas good enough, so I just wasted a bunch of time. The only thing that helped me was literally forcing myself to record a video without writing any notes at all. It was awful. I took a chair, I went outside, I set up the camera and everything, you know. I had this plan, like I was just gonna sit down and talk for like 50 minutes. And I did talk for 50 minutes, but I didn't say anything. I didn't make any points. I had no idea where it was going. The footage is completely unusable. All my thoughts are all over the place. It was so bad. But what it did do was make me realize that I never did run out of ideas. I was trying to match the tone of my videos while simultaneously making them completely different. Obviously an impossible task, especially after only a couple of weeks of doing it. The same day, I got over myself and I sat down and I wrote a script that same day for what I then learned what was holding me back. But it wasn't confidence that got me to do what I needed to do. It was an action. It was me doing something I virtually knew beforehand would be an absolute failure, a waste of time. In case you're wondering, my scripts for these videos that I make usually take up around like 9 pages on Google Docs. When I start writing, I never really know where it's going to end up until I'm finished. So I can't always be sure if my arguments or the message of that video will come over as, you know, insightful, argumentative, impactful, etc. I just write, damn it! And I tend to be satisfied with the result. But I have to accept my feelings and then commit to actions to actually get anywhere. In other words, stop being a pussy. And this applies to so many things we like to avoid doing when you really think and penetrate it. I kind of alluded to this at the end of one of my previous videos, Stop Calling Yourself an Introvert. You can watch that now if you're interested, or if you feel like you're struggling with like basic human socialization. It's like up here. You can look at that video right here and make sure you like and subscribe. And then it plays. Okay. Our mind has a tendency to basically bombard us with thoughts. Evolutionary scientists believe that our ability to imagine situations and above all, imagine ourselves in those situations as sort of imaginary avatars had helped our ancestors in survival situations. They could imagine themselves doing something, going about a plan that they formulated, and they could see all the possible ways it could go wrong. That's us today, imagining all the things that could go wrong in your next cold approach. That could be a girl liking you, rejecting you, laughing at you, pepper spraying your Discordian ass out of sheer fear. Stakes are lower, but it doesn't always mean that the anxiety will be any less. What you should not try and do is to try and get rid of this fear or try and like ignore it. You can't. And if you could, we would probably be ending up making very, very stupid decisions all the time. Thankfully, unlike many of the other members of our animal kingdom, we as humans are not just working with our reptilian brains. We have the ability to make decisions for the future, completely independent of how we feel or what we are sensing in the moment. So if you really wanted to, you could still do what you wanted to do while still acknowledging those thoughts, but realizing that, well, you're not your thoughts, are you? If it was beneficial to do so, that is. It's easier said than done, and like I said, there's a whole book written on how to even get to a stage where you can try and do something like that. Some form of accountability, that is like telling someone what you're going to do or telling yourself what you're going to do tomorrow. Mindfulness, that's like meditation and breathing exercises and so on, are just some ways off the top of my head in which ways you can start getting into this kind of mindset. The point is, your mind is the greatest lawyer, storyteller, liar, manipulator that can manipulate you into doing anything it wants, basically, in that moment, for better or for worse. I think the normal reaction to these thoughts is that we try and ignore them, or we try and rationalize them, or we try and pretend they're not there or something. We try to fight them with new thoughts. If you're honest, you know that doesn't work, at least consistently. And in some people, it can actually make it a lot worse. Just because you involuntarily conjured up something doesn't mean it's true. And that definitely doesn't mean you should listen to it. Using your evolved human brain, try and figure out whether or not the thought you got is helpful instead of if it's true. It is true that you might fail and completely embarrass yourself, but it is also not helpful to think about that possibility when you're trying to do something that you really know you need to do. Confidence gap, therefore, is somewhat of an illusion. The reality is, it's an action gap, because that gap there doesn't exist. You gotta do what you gotta do, my friend. The idea you're sitting on, that skill you want to learn, that thing you know you should do today, but you haven't really started yet and you're just procrastinating. It all boils down to a gap in confidence or a gap in actions. It's tragic when someone who is capable fails to see their potential because they fail to act due to a gap and not even a barrier. It is even worse when this gap is just in our imagination. Merry Christmas! If this video comes up before Christmas. If it doesn't come up before Christmas, then Happy New Year. Cheers.